She sat me by the kitchen. That's where I watched my son get married through a swinging door behind a tray of shrimp cocktail. I paid for the wedding. Every flower. Every chair. But when the music started and the toasts began, I wasn't part of it. Not even close. I smiled, stayed quiet, and after the last bite of cake, I burned it all to the ground with one phone call. The scent of marinara hung in the air, thick and sour, clinging to the steam from the kitchen doors. I felt the heat from the ovens against my back, and something inside me twisted as I stood there, blinking hard at the folding chair with a paper napkin tossed over the seat. That was my place, between a stack of used trays and a wheeled cart with a broken wheel that squeaked every time someone pushed it. I looked down at my dress, soft mauve chiffon, hand-stitched. I had spent 3 hours getting my hair done that morning. 3 hours pretending this day would be as special for me as it was for them. But no one had told me. No one said, "We've made other seating arrangements." No one even looked at me when I arrived. Not even Oliver. He was too busy smiling wide, adjusting his cufflinks, letting Emma's mother kiss him on the cheek like she'd raised him, like she was the one who stayed up every night when he had night terrors, like she was the one who took double shifts when he needed braces, and I couldn't afford both rent and his smile. I clutched my little handbag, beige leather, the one he bought me years ago for Mother's Day when he still called me Mama. My hands were shaking. I could feel it in my wrists, a subtle vibration like something electrical trying to escape through my fingertips. The catering manager, a boy who couldn't be more than 20, smiled awkwardly. They said you were supposed to wait back here. Ma'am, the bride didn't want any visual clashes with the theme." I stared at him. Theme. He winced, glancing at the swinging doors. The silver edge hit the wall again with a sharp bang. Laughter spilled in from the reception hall, followed by a burst of music. Like aesthetic consistency with the photos and all. I sat down slowly. The chair creaked. There was a dark stain on the floor under my feet. Gravy, maybe. My shoes stuck slightly when I shifted them. I looked at my nails, freshly done in a soft pink. Then at the cold chicken breast someone had dropped in front of me on a chipped white plate. The worst part, I didn't say anything. Not one word. Because it was his day. Because I told myself, don't ruin this for him. Don't be that mother. Because I had paid for it all and still believed that meant something. I pulled out the program I'd been handed at the church. Elegant cursive on cream cardstock. No mention of me anywhere. Emma's father walked her down the aisle. Her mother gave the first speech. I was just the purse string. The ghost in the kitchen. The woman no one wanted in the picture. Jay. It hadn't always been this way. When Oliver was small, I was his whole world. After Michael left, it was just the two of us in that tiny apartment with the leaking faucet and the window that never quite closed all the way. I'd come home from night shifts at the hospital, feet swollen, back aching, to find him waiting up, wanting to show me his latest drawing or tell me about the frog he'd seen at school. I still remember the year he turned 8. I couldn't afford a proper birthday party, but I decorated our living room with balloons I'd taken from the hospital break room with permission and baked a lopsided chocolate cake myself. When he saw it, his eyes lit up like I'd given him the moon. "This is the best birthday ever, Mom," he'd shouted, throwing his arms around my neck. We had our struggles. When he was 12, I caught him stealing candy from the corner store. When he was 15, he went through a phase where he barely spoke to me, angry at the world and at his absent father. But we always found our way back to each other. I put him through college, every penny I'd saved, every extra shift I'd worked. All went to his education. I sold my mother's jewelry, the only inheritance I had to cover his final semester when the scholarship fell through. I never told him that part. What would be the point, mother's sacrifice? That's what we do. The changes started when he met Emma Diaz during his senior year. She was studying interior design, came from a family with money, old Arizona money, the kind that doesn't need to show off but is always there, cushioning falls and opening doors. She was beautiful, ambitious, and she saw in Oliver what I'd always seen potential, but she also saw something else. A project, someone who needed elevating, as she often said. The first time I noticed it was at a dinner at her parents' home. Richard and Gloria Diaz lived in a sprawling house with a view of the mountains, the kind of place where even the guest bathroom has fresh flowers. Gloria kept touching Oliver's arm, saying things like, "We'll have to take you shopping, dear. Brooks Brothers has a wonderful fall collection." I sat quietly, wearing my best dress, the navy one I'd bought for a colleague's retirement party 5 years earlier. I watched as Oliver nodded eagerly at everything the Diazes said, watched as he glanced at me less and less throughout the evening. "Rebecca," Gloria had said at one point, "Oliver tells us you're a nurse. How rewarding that must be." The pause before rewarding contained volumes. "Yes," I'd said. 30 years in the ER. I've seen just about everything." "I'm sure you have," Richard replied, not quite meeting my eyes as he poured more wine for everyone but me. I noticed Emma watching this exchange, her eyes calculating. Later, as we were leaving, she hugged me the first time she'd done so. "I'm so glad Oliver has you," she said. "But don't worry, I'll take good care of him now." As if I was being relieved of duty. The wedding planning began 2 years later. I just turned 58 and had finally paid off the second mortgage I'd taken out for Oliver's graduate school. He and Emma came to my house on a Sunday afternoon, bubbling with excitement. "We want something intimate," Emma said, sitting at my kitchen table. "Just family and close friends." I nodded, already mentally calculating what I could afford to contribute. "Mom," Oliver said, reaching for my hand, "we want you to be a big part of this." "Of course," I said, squeezing his fingers. "Whatever you need." What followed was a year of whatever you need, turning into more than I could have imagined. The intimate wedding grew to 150 guests, most of whom I'd never met. The simple venue became an exclusive restored barn with crystal chandeliers and antique whiskey barrels that cost more per day than my monthly mortgage payment. Every time I questioned a cost, Emma had the same response. "We just want something a little more elevated." That word again. As if my suggestions, my very existence, needed to be lifted up from something base and ordinary. I agreed to pay for the venue, the catering, the flowers. I agreed to the custom invitations, the 5-tier cake, the open bar with signature cocktails named after their first date. I agreed because I wanted Oliver to have the wedding I never could. Because I wanted to show the Diazes that I could provide for my son, too. But somewhere in all the agreeing, I became less a mother and more an ATM. The calls became less about seeking my opinion and more about informing me of decisions already made and bills already incurred. "Mom, we just did the menu tasting," Oliver would call to tell me. "They're sending you the invoice. Not what do you think of these options, or would you like to join us? Just the bill." The first real warning sign came at the rehearsal dinner. I'd spent weeks looking for the right dress, something that would fit in with the elevated aesthetic without breaking my already strained budget. I settled on a deep burgundy dress with 3/4 sleeves that hid the looser skin on my upper arms, a concession to vanity I rarely allowed myself. I arrived early, wanting to help with any last-minute preparations. Gloria Diaz was already there, directing the staff like a general. "Rebecca, dear," she said when she saw me, "I think your table is over there." She gestured vaguely toward the back of the restaurant. I found my place card at a table near the kitchen doors, far from the head table where Oliver, Emma, and her parents would sit. I was seated with distant cousins of the Diazes and an elderly great-aunt who was hard of hearing. I said nothing that night either, just smiled and made conversation with Emma's great-aunt, who kept calling me Rachel, no matter how many times I corrected her. Later, when I asked Oliver about the seating, he looked uncomfortable. "Emma handled all that," he said. "I'm sure it wasn't intentional." "Mom?" I almost believed him. The door swung again. I caught a glimpse of the chandelier, the band starting up, the first dance, Oliver and Emma twirling under soft gold light. He didn't look my way once. I pressed my napkin to my mouth, pretending to dab a non-existent stain. My eyes burned. I told myself it was the onions from the kitchen, the steam, the heat, not the betrayal. But it was God. It was... And somewhere deep inside me, Something cracked quietly, like a hairline fracture in glass. You don't notice until the whole pane shatters. I stared at the wall in front of me. There was a patch of peeling paint behind a fire extinguisher. I stared at it so hard I thought I'd burn a hole through it. That spot became my anchor, my focal point, the only thing keeping me from falling apart in front of a waiter carrying crab puffs. Because if I let it out, if I started crying, I didn't know if I'd ever stop. I took a deep breath, then another. The chicken on my plate had gone cold. I didn't touch it. Eventually, someone brought out dessert. I didn't taste it, just stared at the layers of white and gold, her colors, her perfect little vision. The door swung again, another flash of light, of laughter, of the life I was excluded from. Let them toast without me. I had my own plans now. I waited until the last bite of dessert was served, until people were getting up, loosening their ties, wiping icing from their lips, until the music hit that perfect peak. Then I walked out of the kitchen, straight past the servers, straight past the bar, out the side door. The air outside was cool and still, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. I took out my phone. 3 calls, 1 to the florist, 1 to the band, 1 to the bar manager. Polite, direct, no need for explanations. This is Rebecca Phillips. I'm calling to cancel the flowers for tomorrow's brunch. Yes, I understand there's a cancellation fee. That's fine. Hello, this is Rebecca Phillips. I need to cancel the second set for tonight's wedding. Yes, that's correct. Just after the first dance. Hi, I'm calling about the wedding reception for Phillips Diaz. I need to cancel the open bar for the remainder of the evening. No, just a cash bar is fine. Thank you. By the time I walked back into the hotel, the wheels were already turning. Tomorrow's brunch canceled. Late night music set pulled. Open bar gone. I had stayed quiet long enough. Let them enjoy what's left. Let them feel the gap, the absence. Let them ask questions. I didn't care if they called me dramatic, petty, ungrateful. They had already erased me from the story. All I did was turn the page. The hotel room smelled like rose lotion and something faintly metallic. Maybe stress. Maybe my skin. I sat cross-legged on the bed, the comforter still perfectly made beneath me, untouched since I checked in 2 nights ago. I hadn't cried, not once, but something inside me had turned cold. Not frozen. No frozen things are brittle. They crack. I was hardening, tempered. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, a dozen messages. Oliver. Mom, where are you? Why is the band packing up? Mom. Seriously, this isn't funny. Emma. Rebecca, I don't understand what's going on. Are you okay? Please respond. Gloria Diaz. This is so childish. We had a vision. I laughed quietly. Just a puff of air through my nose. Childish. I opened the banking app on my phone. My fingers moved with the muscle memory of someone who had balanced a checkbook every Sunday for 3 decades. The charges were still there. Unauthorized. Arrogant. Emma had helped herself to my card for a pre-wedding spa day with her bridesmaids. No one asked me. No one even told me. I clicked over to my emails. There were 2 new ones, one from the florist and one from the band's manager. I didn't need to read them. I wasn't doing this for a refund. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since the day before. The idea of food made me nauseous. Instead, I got up, pulled the stiff curtains open, and watched the sun bleed into the sky. Orange, then pink, then a pale yellow that made everything look unreal. And then I remembered something. A little red file folder stuffed away in the drawer of my dresser back home. Old paperwork. Legal things. Letters I never threw out. I felt pulled to it, like it had been whispering to me this whole time. I packed my things slowly, took a shower, washed off the perfume and the resentment, dried my hair, put on jeans and a button-down shirt that still smelled faintly like lavender detergent. Checked out of the hotel without a word. The drive home was quiet. Just the sound of tires on asphalt and the soft static of the radio playing songs I didn't know. The kind of drive where you start to hear your own thoughts, loud and unfiltered. He didn't mention you. They all saw where you were sitting. No one did anything. When I pulled into my driveway, the roses I had planted 2 summers ago were in full bloom. I didn't stop to admire them. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the dresser, pulled the red folder out, sat on the bed. At the bottom of the stack, beneath old insurance papers and a few photos I hadn't looked at in years, was a letter. The envelope was yellowed at the corners, postmarked from Arizona, a date written in my late husband's handwriting, the year he left. I remembered finding it weeks after he died. I hadn't opened it then. I couldn't. It had felt like salt in an open wound, like letting him speak from the grave when I wasn't ready to listen. But now, I slid my finger under the flap. The paper was thin, his handwriting slanted and familiar. It started simple. "Rebecca, I know you never wanted to hear from me again, but I need to tell you something. I've been carrying a secret and I can't take it to the grave. You deserve the truth. Oliver. He isn't biologically yours. I found out years ago Emma was pregnant when we got together. I thought I could pretend he was mine, but he's not. And neither of us ever told you." I stopped reading. The room spun just for a second, then settled. I read the rest. Apologies, excuses, regrets, words that meant nothing now. Oliver, my Oliver, was the product of an affair. Another woman's child left on my doorstep like a test I didn't know I was taking. And I passed. God help me, I passed. Every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every night shift I took to buy him sneakers and class photos. I passed with flying colors. And yet here I was, discarded, replaced, erased. But now I had a new clarity, a truth sharp enough to cut through years of silence, and I was done bleeding. I didn't cry. Even as I sat there with that letter trembling in my lap, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd ever held, I didn't shed a single tear. What would be the point tears had built Oliver's childhood? Tears paid for his shoes, his asthma medication, his first car. They filled my pillow after his father left, and again when he walked across that high school stage, not once turning to wave at me in the crowd. I had run out of tears years ago. What I had now was something else. Not grief, not heartbreak clarity. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. Black, strong. I sat by the window and watched the neighbor's sprinkler tick, tick, tick across the lawn. It was a normal Sunday morning, but I was no longer the woman who paid for someone else's fairy tale and got a folding chair behind the punch bowl in return. I was no longer the woman who would swallow this. Not this. My phone vibrated on the table, the screen lighting up with Oliver's name. I let it ring. Then Emma's mother. Then Emma herself. I watched them come in, one after another, imagining the panic at the other end as they realized the open bar had closed. The band had packed up, and tomorrow's elaborate brunch had been canceled. I should have felt guilty. A good mother would feel guilty for ruining her son's wedding. But the woman in the kitchen wasn't a mother anymore. She was just a wallet with a pulse. And wallets don't feel guilt when the money stops flowing. When the barrage of calls finally stopped, I scrolled through my recent transactions again. The unauthorized charges stood out like bruises on pale skin. A pre-wedding champagne tasting for $640. A spa day for the bridal party, $1,220. Dress alterations for Emma's mother, $375. My bank account had been treated like a communal fund, accessed without permission or even acknowledgement. And beneath the most recent charges, I found months of similar withdrawals small enough that I might not notice individually, but substantial when added together. I took screenshots of everything, then closed the app. Evidence. Though I wasn't sure yet what for. Not revenge, I was too tired for that. But perhaps for the moment when my resolve might weaken. When Oliver's voice on the phone might sound enough like the little boy who once called me his hero to make me doubt myself. I needed to remember this feeling, this clarity, this righteous anger that made my hands steady for the first time in days. My phone buzzed with a text message. Oliver. Mom! What the hell? Everyone's asking what happened. The band left and the bar is charging $15 for well drinks. Did you cancel everything? Call me. I set the phone down without responding. Let him panic. Let him feel one fraction of the humiliation I'd felt sitting in that kitchen, watching his wedding through a swinging door. Another text came through. This one from Emma. Emma, Rebecca, I don't know what's going on, but this is so inappropriate. If you're upset about something, we can talk about it tomorrow. Right now, you're embarrassing Oliver and ruining our special day. Special day, as if it were a sacred event, untouchable by the concerns of mere mortals, as if my pain were trivial compared to their vision. I finally replied, not to Oliver or Emma, but to the family group chat that included my sister Carol and my niece Diane, both of whom had been at the wedding. I'm fine, just needed some space. I'll be in touch soon. That would prevent any wellness checks or worried relatives showing up at my door. I needed time alone with these revelations, with this new understanding of my place in the world. And then, as if the universe knew I needed more proof that I'd made the right decision, my email pinged with a notification from Venmo. I rarely used the app. Oliver had set it up for me years ago, insisting it was easier than writing checks. I opened it to find a message from Emma to one of her bridesmaids. Last-minute upgrades for tonight. His mom is covering everything. Might as well go big. Wedding vibes. The timestamp was from 2 days ago, after I'd already paid the final balances for everything, after I'd drained my emergency fund to cover the unexpected increase in catering costs. I stared at those words for a long time. His mom is covering everything. Might as well go big. Not Rebecca generously offered. Not we're so grateful. Just an entitlement so casual it didn't even register as exploitation. I took another screenshot. Then I did something I'd never done before. I opened Facebook, an account Oliver had insisted I create to stay connected, and posted the image of the check I'd written for the venue. Just the check, my signature visible, the amount clear. No caption, no explanation, just evidence of a contract broken. Within minutes, notifications began to flood in. Old colleagues, neighbors, distant relatives, some confused, some outraged on my behalf. I didn't respond to any of them. I just let the truth sit there, undeniable. I spent the rest of the day in a strange, detached state. I cleaned the kitchen, wiped down counters that were already clean, sorted mail that had piled up during the wedding preparations. Normal Sunday activities that felt surreal against the backdrop of what had happened. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I didn't answer. Let them knock. Let them sit in the heat of their own discomfort. Eventually, the knocking stopped. A text from Oliver followed. Mom, I was at the door for 20 minutes. We need to talk about what happened. Everyone is furious. Emma's parents are threatening to sue you for breaching a contract or something. Please call me. Sue me for refusing to fund the rest of their extravaganza after they'd hidden me away like an embarrassing secret. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. I didn't call. Instead, I went to the guest bedroom and started cleaning out the dresser. It was something I'd been meaning to do for years, sort through the accumulated debris of a life spent putting others first. Old birthday cards from Oliver, his school reports, photos of us at the beach, at his graduation, at Christmas. I didn't throw them away. I wasn't angry enough for that, but I did put them in a box, sealed it with packing tape, and wrote Oliver's childhood on the side. Then I placed it on the top shelf of the closet, out of sight but not destroyed. Like the woman I used to be, not gone, just no longer center stage. As evening fell, my phone continued to buzz with messages and calls. I silenced it, made myself a proper dinner lemon pasta with roasted cherry tomatoes. A recipe I'd seen on a cooking show but never had the courage to try because Oliver preferred simpler food and ate it at the dining table with a glass of wine and soft jazz playing in the background. For the first time in decades, I set the table for one without feeling pathetic, without apologizing to an empty chair for not being part of a pair. Monday morning arrived with a watery sunlight that matched my mood, not dark, not bright, just clear. I checked my phone to find 27 missed calls and over 40 text messages. I scrolled through them quickly, not reading most, just noting the escalation from confusion to anger to desperate pleading. The final message from Oliver, sent at 3:17 a.m., caught my attention. Mom, I don't understand what happened. I'm sorry if something upset you. Please just talk to me. If something upset me, as if he couldn't possibly imagine what it might be. As if being seated in the kitchen, excluded from photos, unmentioned in speeches, and treated like an ATM weren't obvious causes for distress. I was about to put the phone down again when it rang in my hand. Not Oliver this time, but my niece Diane. I hesitated, then answered. Aunt Rebecca, thank God you picked up. Everyone's worried sick. I'm fine. Diane, just needed some space. What happened at the wedding? Oliver said you left early and canceled a bunch of stuff. Emma's parents are furious. I paused, considering my words carefully. Did you see where I was sitting during the reception? A beat of silence. No, I guess I didn't notice. I was in the kitchen, Diane, behind the swinging doors. They put me there because I didn't fit the aesthetic. I paid for that entire wedding over $30,000 and they hid me away like something shameful. Another silence. Longer this time. Oh my God, I had no idea. That's terrible. Aunt Rebecca, I'm so sorry. Did you know Oliver isn't my biological son? The words came out before I could stop them. I hadn't planned to share this revelation with anyone, but now that it was out, I felt oddly relieved. What? No, that can't be right. I found a letter from Michael. Oliver was another woman's child. Michael brought him home and lied to me. Told me he was ours. I raised him, loved him, sacrificed everything for him, and he let them put me in the kitchen. Diane was quiet for so long I thought she might have hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. I can't even imagine. What are you going to do? It was a good question. What was I going to do? Keep hiding in my house. Return Oliver's calls. Pretend none of this had happened. I'm going to start living for myself, I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. I've spent my entire adult life being Oliver's mother. Now I'm going to find out who Rebecca is. Do you want me to come over? I could bring lunch? No, thank you. I need some time alone, but I appreciate the offer. After we hung up, I sat with my coffee, watching the birds at the feeder outside my window. Small, quick creatures with their own urgent lives. I wondered if they ever resented the constant work of survival, the endless feeding and nest building, or if they simply accepted it as the nature of their existence. I had accepted too much, for too long. Around midday, I got in my car and drove to the bank. The young woman at the desk, her name tag read Melissa, greeted me with professional warmth. I'd like to review my accounts, I said, and make some changes. For the next hour, Melissa helped me untangle my financial life. I closed joint accounts, removed Oliver as an authorized user on my credit card, and set up new passwords for my online banking. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I was doing it because I finally understood that love and financial entanglement were not the same thing. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Ms. Phillips? Melissa asked when we were finished. Yes, actually, I'd like to set up an appointment with someone about retirement planning. I'm 58, and I've been so focused on helping my son that I haven't really thought about my own future. Melissa smiled. We can absolutely help with that. How does Thursday at 10 a.m. sound? Perfect. As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not happy. Exactly, the wound was still too fresh for happiness, but purposeful. I had a direction now, even if I didn't know exactly where it would lead. When I got home, I found a bouquet on my porch. Cheap carnations, already wilting in the heat. No card, but I knew they were from Oliver, a weak attempt at reconciliation without actual accountability. I didn't bring them inside. Instead, I walked them straight to the trash bin. The sound of my phone ringing greeted me as I entered the house. I glanced at the screen. Oliver again. This time, I answered. Hello, Oliver. Mom, finally. What the hell is going on? Why haven't you been answering? I needed time to think. Think about what? Why would you cancel everything like that? Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? Emma's parents are furious, and the venue manager said we might be blacklisted from future events. I sat down at my kitchen table, running my fingers over a scratch in the wood, a mark from when Oliver had pressed too hard on a school project years ago. Did you know where I was sitting during your reception? There was a pause. What? I was in the kitchen, Oliver, behind the swinging doors. I watched you dance through a crack between door and wall. I ate on a chipped plate next to the dish station because Emma didn't want me to clash with her theme. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought Oliver had hung up. "Mom," he finally said, his voice suddenly small. I didn't know. Emma handled the seating arrangements. I thought you were with Aunt Carol." "Did you look for me during the reception?" I asked quietly. Another pause. "I was busy with everything. The first dance. The photos. Talking to Emma's family. Too busy to notice your mother wasn't at any of the tables. Too busy to wonder why I wasn't in a single photo. Too busy to mention me in your speech when you thanked everyone who made this day possible. Mom, that's not fair. It was my wedding day. And I paid for every second of it. Oliver. Every flower. Every past appetizer. Every crystal glass. I remortgaged my house to give you the wedding you wanted. And in return, you let them hide me away like something shameful." "It wasn't like that," he protested weakly. "Emma just wanted everything to look perfect. Her parents have certain expectations. And what about my expectations?" My voice was steady now, gaining strength with each word. "Did I expect too much to be treated with basic dignity to be acknowledged as your mother? Mom, please, can we talk about this in person? I'll come over right now." I closed my eyes, feeling suddenly exhausted. "No, Oliver, not today. I need more time. But the charges, all those cancellations Emma's parents are talking about legal action. Let them try. Every contract was in my name. I have copies of all the emails, all the agreements. I have records of Emma using my credit card without permission. I have screenshots of her bragging about spending my money. Tell them to tread carefully." "Mom," he sounded shocked. This wasn't the mother he knew, the one who accommodated, who sacrificed, who stayed quiet. "I'll call you when I'm ready to talk," I said. "Goodbye, Oliver." I hung up before he could respond, setting the phone down gently on the table. The house felt different around me now, not empty, but open, full of possibility rather than absence. I walked from room to room, seeing my home with new eyes. So many spaces defined by Oliver's presence or memory. His old bedroom, now a guest room but still decorated with his high school pennant. The dent in the hallway wall from the time he tried to move his dresser alone. The bookshelf filled with volumes I'd kept because they were his favorites, not mine. I'd built my entire life around being his mother, and now, at 58, I hardly knew who I was without that identity. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection, lines around my eyes and mouth, silver streaking through my brown hair. Not old, but no longer young. A face that had spent decades arranging itself into expressions meant to comfort, support, encourage others. "Who are you?" I asked the woman in the mirror. "Who are you when you are not someone's mother?" The answer didn't come immediately. It would take time. I realized time and intention and perhaps some fumbling in the dark. But I would find her. The woman behind the mother. The Rebecca who existed before and beyond Oliver. I started small. I took down the photos of Oliver that dominated my living room walls. Not in anger, I wrapped each frame carefully in old towels before placing them in a box, but in recognition that my home needed to reflect more than just my role as a mother. In their place. I hung a watercolor painting I'd bought years ago at a local art fair, but had stored in the closet because it didn't match the decor Oliver had helped me choose. Its vibrant blues and purples energized the room in a way the formal family portraits never had. Next, I called Nancy, my old colleague from the hospital. We'd been close once, before Oliver's college years consumed all my free time and energy. "Rebecca," she exclaimed when she heard my voice. "It's been ages. How are you?" "I've been better," I admitted. "But I'm working on it. I was wondering if you might want to have lunch this week." "I'd love that. How about Wednesday at Maggio's? They still have that spinach salad you used to like." "Wednesday sounds perfect," After we hung up, I made another call, this one to David Henderson, my neighbor who had been quietly helpful over the years, shoveling my walk in winter and keeping an eye on my house when I traveled. "Ms. Phillips," he answered warmly. "How was the wedding?" "Educational," I replied, which made him chuckle. "David, I was wondering if you could recommend someone to help me with some garden work. I'd like to expand the rose beds. No need for recommendations. I'd be happy to help myself, if you'd let me. I've been admiring those roses of yours for years." "That would be wonderful. And please, call me Rebecca." By evening, I had made 4 such calls, reconnecting with people who knew me as more than just Oliver's mom. Each conversation felt like uncovering a piece of myself I'd forgotten existed: the nurse with a dark sense of humor, the woman who once loved poetry, the neighbor who made the best peach cobbler on the block. I slept better that night than I had in months, waking to sunlight and the chirping of birds outside my window. No anxiety, no dread, just a strange, tentative peace. The doorbell rang as I was finishing my morning coffee. Through the front window, I saw Diane standing on my porch, a bakery box in her hands. I opened the door. "I know you said you wanted to be alone," she said, a little sheepishly, "but I thought you might like these." She held out the box. "Almond croissants from Bellini's, your favorite." I smiled, genuinely touched. "Thank you, Diane. Would you like to come in for coffee?" We sat at the kitchen table, the pastries between us. Diane glanced around, noticing the missing photos. "You redecorated," she observed carefully. "Just making some changes, nothing dramatic." Diane picked at her croissant. "I talked to Oliver last night. He's struggling with all this. I imagine he is. He said he tried to call you, that you told him you'd found out he wasn't your biological son, Aunt Rebecca. Is that true?" I nodded, taking a sip of coffee. "I found a letter from Michael. Oliver was another woman's child. Michael brought him home and let me believe he was ours." Diane's eyes widened. "That's unbelievable. Does Oliver know who his birth mother is?" "I don't know what Oliver knows. Michael's letter didn't say. But it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? I raised him. I loved him as my own. And still, he let them put me in the kitchen." Diane reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm so sorry. I should have noticed. I should have said something. It's not your responsibility, Diane." "But it's family. We're supposed to look out for each other." She hesitated. "What can I do to help now?" I considered the question. What did I need? Not sympathy. Not really. Not someone to fight my battles for me. What I needed was acknowledgement, visibility. "Just see me," I said finally. "Not as Oliver's mother or Michael's ex-wife or any role I play. Just see me as Rebecca." Diane nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I can do that." After she left, I pulled out a notepad and began to write. Not a letter to Oliver or Emma or the Diazes, but a list for myself. Things I had always wanted to do but had put aside for motherhood, for obligation, for other people's dreams. 1. Take a painting class. 2. Travel to Santa Fe. 3. Learn to make real Italian pasta from scratch. 4. Volunteer at the animal shelter. 5. Read all of Jane Austen's novels. 6. Try kayaking. 7. Host a dinner party for friends. The list grew, each item a small rebellion against the decades of self-denial. Some were simple pleasures, others more ambitious undertakings. All were mine alone. I was halfway through the list when my phone pinged with a text. I expected Oliver again, or perhaps Emma with more accusations, but it was from Maria, the owner of the local bookstore I visited every Sunday. "Missed you yesterday. New Isabel Allende just arrived. I'm setting one aside for you." Such a small kindness, but it brought tears to my eyes, the first I'd shed since finding Michael's letter. Someone had noticed my absence. Someone had thought of me, not as an extension of someone else, but as myself, a woman who loved Isabel Allende novels. I texted back, "Thank you, Maria. I'll stop by this afternoon." The bookstore was quiet when I arrived, just a few customers browsing the shelves. Maria looked up from the register and smiled broadly. Rebecca, there you are. How was the wedding? I hesitated, then decided on honesty. It was revealing. Maria raised an eyebrow. That sounds ominous. Everything okay? It will be, I said, surprised to find I believed it. I'm making some changes in my life. Good changes, I hope necessary ones. I smiled. You mentioned an Allende novel. Maria reached beneath the counter and pulled out a hardcover book. Just came in yesterday. I thought of you immediately. The novel was about a woman in her 60s starting her life over after a loss. I almost laughed at the synchronicity. It's perfect, I said. I'll take it. Wonderful. Maria rang up the purchase. Oh, and I meant to tell you we're starting a book club next month. Wednesday evenings, very casual. We'd love to have you join us. I'd like that, I said, realizing I meant it. I'd like that very much. Walking home with the new book tucked under my arm, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time, it felt like my path, not one dictated by obligation or guilt or someone else's expectations. When I reached my house, I noticed a car parked in the driveway, a sleek silver Audi I recognized as Oliver's. My step faltered for a moment, the lightness evaporating. I wasn't ready to face him yet. Wasn't prepared for the conversation that would inevitably include his justifications and her excuses. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't Oliver sitting behind the wheel. It was Emma. She got out when she saw me approaching, her designer sunglasses perched on top of her head, her expression a carefully composed mask of contrition. Rebecca, she said, taking a step toward me. I hope you don't mind me stopping by. Oliver doesn't know I'm here. I stood my ground, neither approaching nor retreating. What do you want, Emma? She sighed, glancing down at her manicured hands. I wanted to apologize about the seating arrangement. It was thoughtless. Thoughtless implies lack of thought. You made a deliberate choice. Her composed expression flickered. It wasn't personal. We just had a very specific vision for the reception. And, not personal, I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm. You put the mother of the groom, the person who paid for your entire vision, behind the kitchen doors. And you want to tell me it wasn't personal. Emma's mask slipped further, irritation flashing in her eyes. Look, I said I was sorry. What more do you want? You didn't have to cancel everything and embarrass us in front of everyone. My parents' friends were there. Important people from my father's firm. And there it was, the truth behind the apology. Not remorse for the hurt caused, but anger at the consequences. I think you should go, Emma, I said calmly. I'm not ready to have this conversation. When will you be ready? She demanded. Oliver is devastated. My parents are talking about legal action. This whole situation is completely out of hand. I looked at her, really looked at her. The beautiful, polished young woman my son had chosen. The woman who had seen me as nothing more than a checkbook and an aesthetic inconvenience. Emma, I said quietly, do you know what I did for a living before I retired? She blinked, thrown by the change of subject. You were a nurse, right? An emergency room nurse. For 30 years, I've held people's hands as they died. I've performed CPR on infants. I've worked 20-hour shifts during disasters. I've been spat on, punched, vomited on, and through it all, I've maintained my dignity and my compassion. I took a step closer to her. So when you talk to me about things being out of hand because your party ended early, you'll have to forgive me if I don't share your sense of emergency. Emma stared at me, momentarily speechless. As for legal action, I continued, I've already spoken with my bank about the unauthorized charges on my card. I have records of every transaction, every contract. I suggest your parents consider carefully before proceeding. This isn't you, Emma said finally. Oliver always said you were the sweetest, most selfless person, that you'd do anything for family. That was the old Rebecca, I said, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The one who let herself be used because she thought that's what love looked like. The new Rebecca values herself more highly. Emma shook her head, reaching for her car door. I don't even know what to say to that. You don't have to say anything. Just go home to my son and tell him that when he's ready to see me, really see me, he knows where I live. I watched her drive away, the sleek car disappearing around the corner. Then I went inside, locked the door, and began to plan the dinner party I would host that weekend, my first in years. Not for Oliver, not for family, but for the people who had seen me all along, for the first time in my adult life. I would set the table exactly as I wanted it, and every chair would face the center, where I would finally, rightfully, belong.